Buongiorno, benvenuti.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to the meeting between Club Degli Orafi and Intesa Sanpaolo. Happy to see that you have come here so numerous. It's a honor to have Mr. Matteo Masini from the ICE Consumer Goods Department. You have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, speakers. As a matter of fact, I'd just like to congratulate and wish you a nice meeting. I'd like to congratulate you for the success of this event. This is part of the work that we do with the trade fair in these two editions. Promotion, meeting with the buyers, communication, this is a key point. In particular, it's important to convene to get a better understanding of the issues which are useful to make our companies competitive in the foreign markets. I have no paper to present, just my greetings. I remind you that our network of agencies is available 24 hours a day in order to do practical work on the topics we are going to talk of today in order to tailor the approach to each individual market. Thank you very much and enjoy the proceedings. Thank you very much, Matteo. I'd like to thank all your colleagues. We have Giuseppe Oliva, who has been working with us. I'd like to say something in advance. We are going to see great numbers, also because of the support of ICE, which is helping companies to get international. I wouldn't say in a more sustainable way, not to make confusion. I dare say in a very useful way. Thank you very much for all you do for us. Now, without further ado, you see we have many speakers today. There are 5 of them, and they are going to express 5 points of view. I don't want to take too much of their time. Thank you very much, Giorgio Villa, who, yes, you, past president. He's saying, this is not my business. As a matter of fact, he has passed his job to me. And I also congratulate the president of Club Degli Orafi, Maria Cristina Squarcialupi. This is the first time by Cristina as a president, the first time that we have so many speakers. This is not the first time we have this event. This is the 19th edition of this meeting to present the industry study. Next year, we'll celebrate the 20 years, and so we plan to celebrate. It's the 6th edition of the survey on sentiment presented by Mr. Ungarelli. Now we have Sara Giusti, an economist at Intesa Sanpaolo Bank, Augusto Ungarelli, a delegate of the Studi Centro and past president of Club Degli Orafi and Lombardi Orafi. Cristina Squarcialupi, who has a very long CV. She is here as president of Club Degli Orafi, UnoAerre Industries, and she has the proxy for sustainability. Then a very welcome guest, Alessandro Aresu. He is the scientific advisor of Limes. It's a great pleasure to have him here. Limes is a journal on geopolitics. And then Stefano Rocca, Chief Operating Officer of the Gismondi Group. Let's get started with the data. Sara Giusti from the bank. This is a very complex time. We hear about opportunities, problems. We are in a permanent period of crisis. I would say a perma-crisis. A war which we expected to end soon in Ukraine was not such. Another one in the Middle East. Then the German economy has come to a near stop. Not only for technology, and the saying goes for the world economy, a drop in purchases in China. A large part of the world is going to vote. 76 countries will vote. 4 billion people, and that could completely change the geopolitical situation. And that's why we have Alessandro Aresu here. Sara, I know that indeed, there are also good news. What about the gold jewelry industry? Are we unique?
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me here. Well, for sure, the scenario we're talking about is a pretty complex one. It is uncertain and rich in unknowns, like the election. So 2024 will probably go in the annals of history as the year where the biggest part of the population worldwide will go to elections, not last in the United States. There are some economic data that show some signs of weakening. The economic cycle is weakening, but notwithstanding this, the United States are still in a soft landing mode. The interest rates have increased by 5 points, and the so-called recession in the United States has not taken place. In Europe, we also have signals of a slowdown with a recovery that has been shifted towards the end of the year or 2025, and the most recent data of the production index also go in this direction. And if we focus on Italy, we can see that the first 6 months of the year have yielded results that were more positive than expected, with a GDP of the first semester showing a growth by 0.6%. So Italy would actually grow by 0.6% if this year, for the remaining part of the year, there was no extra growth. So this is a scenario that we are hypothesizing. And amongst the different crises, of course, we also have the energy crisis and the inflation impact that it has brought about. We are now going through a recovery in terms of inflation, aiming at that 2% threshold in 2025. And this has actually eased the monetary policies. BCE has already reduced by 0.25% the interest rate in June, and we are expecting 2 more cuts next week, for instance. But also the Fed is actually getting ready to cut rates. Most likely, this will be done in September. So all these elements, the geopolitical tensions, the uncertainty that characterizes the present situation have brought the gold price to higher levels. This is our estimate. We are confronted with an easing of monetary policies. Uncertainty is there, and that increases the demand for gold as a safe haven asset. And this is why the gold price has peaked, and we expect for 25 $2,490 the ounce as an average price for gold. So this is the context in which world demand has moved. These are the data of the World Gold Council up to June, and that's the trend of world demand in terms of quantity. So we can see that with the golden prices we've seen before, we have had a decrease by 10% in world gold demand, and we can see that in the first quarter, the demand was stable, but then there's a drop by 19% in the second quarter. And one of the main markets where there's slowing down of the economy and the price of gold has particularly influenced demand is the Chinese market, where demand has gone down by 17%. But on the right, we can see that this trend has been confirmed in all main geographical areas. So complexity, difficulties, uncertainty. And you were telling us that the gold industry the jewelry industry is actually going against this trend since we got positive signals. So we have compared this with the fashion sector, textile, leather goods, clothing, since these are sectors that are very close to the gold jewelry sector. So in the fashion world, we had a minus 80% turnover in the first 6 months, whereas we have a plus 4% in the gold industry. But maybe we should also think more about the graph, the graph on the right, where we can see that turnover and production are actually going two different ways. And we are witnessing an adaptation compared to the previous 2 years where production had been particularly high. So this symptom may anticipate future developments. So this counter trend in fashion and in the manufacturing sector, let's not forget that we have two speeds. Services are going well. The manufacturing industry is suffering also because of the delays and the slowdown in neighboring countries, which are our main target markets. For gold jewelry, growth is determined by the capability to be present on international markets. And these are the data of the first 5 months in Italy. So the export of gold jewelry amounting to 6.6 billion, 63% up compared to the previous year. And once again, if we make a comparison with the other industries, here we also included glasses and spectacles, we can see that the gold jewelry sector has a peculiar dynamism. And thanks to this dynamism, Italy has become the #1 country exporting in Europe, as you can see on the left, where we can see data for the whole year. And the percentage changes show that we are increasing our share compared to the other countries and make up more than 50% of the European export. In the first 5 months, France stopped at about 3 billion, even though they had a very good growth rate. The Netherlands have actually doubled their export, but we're talking about very small values. So the statistical effect creates a little bit of a distortion of this representation. When describing export, it is important to talk about the markets, because it is important to know the destination markets and their peculiarities. The market that has pushed the growth is Turkey. Turkey is the #1 market of destination in the first 5 months of this year. This growth is related to several aspects. First of all, Turkey is a logistical hub. Therefore, in a situation of uncertainty like the present one, they were able to channel flows. But this is also dependent on the import policies that have been enacted by the Ankara government, allowing for the export of products with a lower average value. But apart from Turkey, if we excluded Turkey from the data the first 5 months, we can see that the jewelry industry shows a growth by 6.4%, which is highly significant. Also, when once in a blue moon events have been excluded. Another important element that I would like to talk about, and I apologize for the data which are not totally updated, Another important aspect are the clusters. We know that clusters have specific features, and our research department monitors the three main clusters, Arezzo, Vicenza, and Valenza. In 2024, they make up more than 77% of the export in this industry. In the clusters, markets do play a role. So let's have a look at the concentration of growth. Most of the export to Turkey comes from Arezzo. That has also increased its exports towards the United Arab Emirates. Valenza is not exporting that much to Turkey. Vicenza has grown by 19%, and Valenza has grown by 6%. So it is true, the scenario is still complex and uncertain, but this industry still proves to be highly reactive, as we had already seen immediately after the COVID pandemics. So this is a snapshot that we can desume from the most recent data. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara. We feel reassured, but we would like to analyze the details. You gave figures. As you know, also in the past 6 editions, we provide to many companies a questionnaire on the sentiment. So we ask entrepreneurs what's their perception on the performance of the market, their difficulties, the criticalities which they experience. Augusto Ungarelli, past president of Club Degli Orafi and delegate at the study centers for the subject. During the opening ceremony, the president used the term stubbornness. That is, IEG is stubborn because they want to restructure the trade fair. Do you experience this stubbornness? What's your perception from the point of view of entrepreneurs? Thank you very much and welcome. That's a good question. That indeed describes the spirit of entrepreneurs. They never stop. We are used to having economic cycles. The figures presented a few minutes ago shows the good quality of our industry. It shows that we indeed are interested in using all the tools we have, such as the ones offered by ICE, to achieve the levels of export we have as first in Europe. So entrepreneurs feel the emotions of this time. That means they feel the concerns. But the best example in this is the recovery in the post-pandemic period. Italian companies were able to restart a machine which had come to a halt, to start again in markets which were difficult to reach because we could not fly. And the data provided by Intesa, Sanpaolo, and Club Degli Orafi showed that, our entrepreneurs are brave, courageous. They could overcome incredible barriers. So my answer is yes. We have an industry which is still able to provide great responses. If you allow me, I'd like to say goodbye to Mrs. Trenti, or to say hello, rather, because the collaboration continues. We have been working together. I'm sure she's following us remotely. So indeed, we give her a warm embrace. Thank you very much. It's interesting to know what entrepreneurs have in their hearts. The survey provided data till the end of July. The expectations confirm the good trends for the year. Still, companies, the largest companies, are less optimistic. In general, we feel that there is a slowdown. And Dr. Aresu will explain the geopolitical issues. Apart from that, we know that Italian companies are complex. The big companies which were able to flourish in this area, they used a very well-organized community. And the crafts, which collaborated with the great brands. There has been a repositioning after the pandemic, and with the major results achieved in the immediate post-pandemic period, there is a realignment downwards. That had an impact on the performance of big companies. So the demand for product went down. As for export data, that seems contradictory. We do have high numbers for export, but at present, the sentiment shows that people are more cautious in positioning themselves. That shows that the expectations hold. There was a very good 2023, and everything confirms that the industry is healthy. The worsening of demand conditions shows a difficulty. First of all, the cost of raw materials and semi-manufactured products. Indeed, in our industry, we use a lot of gold. And Mrs. Giusti just described the perspectives for the future. But there is another point raised by entrepreneurs, that is the lack of labor. One company out of 4 complained about that. In January, based on data of December 2023, finding labor ranked first and now is ranking 3rd. That means that the slowing down in terms of production had an impact on demand, and the effects are perceived in the production. Major brands indeed could obtain their products in the other companies, but when the demand goes down, also the flows go down. So the issue of labor that was mentioned many times, not only by our industry, is still a critical point, also considering the generation change that will happen in the future. It's not only a change between one generation to the other, but also the issue of people who gathered their experience in the crafts sector, that was the basis for the Made in Italy style, will disappear. So there is a strategic issue there. Having new people, and indeed that's an issue not only for our industry, But that applies to the whole world of production. The idea of training is key. Indeed, you have to give skills to people who approach this industry for the first time. So that is key for the survival of the Italian manufacturing sector, which is well recognized and appreciated in the world. Well, as the demand goes down, also the concern for energy costs go down. We heard about the expectations we had in December 2023 with the war in Ukraine. We had no idea about its development. So the price of energy was critical. We had uncertainties in the currency exchange rates, and that made planning difficult for companies. Now things are better. Some companies profited from these concerns, but the investments are still there. The investments which were made in 2023, which were considered as strategic by the majority of companies, are still considered strategic. In June, 29% of people interviewed confirmed that they will continue to invest. And this is very good, even if the sentiment is positive on the one hand, but we are all very sensitive to the issue. What is the trigger which makes company decide? Well, first of all, the evolution of the domestic demand, the competition scenario, and the performance of foreign demand, and also the image of the industry. That refers to the production world, the ability to be competitive on the international scenario, and also the domestic market and its structure, in order to make decisions for the future. And I'm sure that Club Degli Orafi will have to tackle this issue, in particular from the point of view of retail. Our world has changed.
Del vissuto.
Those of you who are sitting here probably remember wholesalers. Wholesalers some years ago were totally different from today's situation. The figures indicated by Dr. Giusti have demonstrated that our export is significant. We're the #1 country in Europe exporting amazing quantities. So for sure, we are confronted with a repositioning, and we have to rethink our distribution structure. And I believe Club Degli Orafi is already working at this. So we're talking about investing, but we're talking about two different worlds. Technological innovation is paramount in manufacturing. Investment will go in that direction. But the introduction of new technology does not only mean new machines. It means that those machines need to be controlled with new competencies. This also means investing more to obtain a better quality, to be competitive, and being able to identify the needs of foreign demand. Foreign demand still has a lot of room to grow because data are demonstrating that there is a widespread acknowledgement of beautiful, made in Italy items. Domestic demand is also a very important point. We need a future strategy also for the national retail that only goes through a stronger image. This means rethinking our image, not only in aesthetic terms. Aesthetics is very important, but we need to reposition all our competencies, skills, and opportunities that can be born out of the cooperation of the whole creative, productive, artisanal forces with the manufacturing and distributing capabilities that our production scenario can provide. So this is in harmony with the results that have been presented by Dr. Giusti. Results that have been achieved by 7,278 companies working in our industry with 31,388 employees. These are the most recent data of the Aresu Chamber of Commerce. It is an important background that provides our country not only with fame and reputation, with Made in Italy being known all over the world, but that also supports our big export volumes, which economically is positive not only for our industry, but for the whole country as well. Thank you very much, Augusto. Well, for sure, these figures are the figures of a compartment that works within this in Sara Giusti's data, and also in the perception of entrepreneurs, since there is optimism in the air. Thank you very much also to Dr. Mazzini. So back to what you told us before about retail, I would like to give you a preview. Club degli Orafi is developing a project which is an analysis of the multi-brand retail supported by Professor Marco Petroni. And I would like to anticipate that in October there will be an event to present results. We believe that retail is a part of the Italian industry that can draw benefit from support coming from the sociological background, because it is our front office. So when the product reaches a final customer, there is always a retailer playing in between. So thank you very much, President. You don't miss anything. On Sunday, please come to our talk organized by Feder Preziosi. Steven Tranquilli, the director of the Feder Preziosi, is here with us. And right here, we will have the two presidents, Andres and Squarcialupi, who at 1:15 p.m. on Sunday will talk about a series of very interesting topics. No lunch? Well, you can have lunch before or after. Anyway, we all know that on Sunday we are always a little bit tired, maybe, so we want to sit down and listen to them. Oh, I've seen that the other president is here with us as well. Welcome. So that will be very interesting because we will address the two souls, production and retail, their crossroads, their critical elements, how one can support the other, and how they should listen to each other more. So 1:15 p.m. here on Sunday at the Educational Hub. Cristina, we have focused this year on a topic that is particularly dear to you. Our president is not only the president of Club degli Orafi and vice president of Federorafi regarding the sustainability. She's also president of LASI and managing director of Quilme. So she's a person who really is an expert in sustainability. And she knows the present situation very well. This is why we tried to investigate the perception of Italian entrepreneurs regarding sustainability. Cristina, do they still view sustainability as an additional cost or as a strategic opportunity, a governance opportunity?
Thank you. I have slides to answer your question. How to say that there are some companies who understand that investing in sustainability is an investment, not a cost, and that there are others who are not yet convinced. Laura indicated that besides the analysis on sentiment, we also sent a questionnaire on sustainability. The idea was to assess the perception of entrepreneurs. As you know, sustainability is a term which is, in a way, much abused. How are measures perceived and implemented? Companies are attentive on sustainability, and they adopt many measures, which number goes up together with the size of the company. Production companies, they do separate collection, but they are also careful about reducing the use of packaging and dangerous materials. About 55% of production companies interviewed have a specific certification. The most used is that of the Jury Council on their accountability. Is a sort of industry certification. The same goes for trading companies. Separate collection is widely used, ranking first. They try to consume less paper and use sustainable packaging. The average number of measures implemented goes up with the increasing size of the company. We asked sustainability actions to what extent have an impact on the perception of customers along the supply chain. As for production, customers perceive sustainability as an element of competitiveness, of good reputation. So much so that more than 50% of companies, in a way, is paid off by the customers for that. The percentage is still low in the trading world because customers apparently are not indeed fully aware of the importance of sustainability. They have a different level of sensitivity, to put it not very bluntly. 57% of companies interviewed state that customers are increasingly attentive, more attentive to sustainability as compared with 2019. This attention is very keen in young people, as you see there. However, 62% say that it is not well developed yet. So the ground for improvement is ample. Please note that women are more sensitive. There is a survey, I think by PwC, indicating that women are more sensitive to these topics. Some said because women have children, so they prefer to give good quality food or dresses and so on. Then, what are the challenges? This is another question. To implement sustainable practices. First of all, we have costs. The question asked at the beginning, well, unfortunately, we have to answer that cost in a way is an impediment to implementing for sustainability practices. As for production, there is a lack of skills or understanding or standardization in the sector. The trade sector is impacted by that. They feel the problem because the supply chain is very complex, and also there is an issue of markups. I would say that the challenge there lies in making people aware, also during the training, to this world, which is the world we have been living in for many years now. Unfortunately, this is not also included in the training plans. As for training, we see that entrepreneurs, well, more than 50% of them have no training programs or plans on sustainability for their workers. Training means knowledge and awareness, also in making choices. I said that sustainability is a term which is very much abused. It is very much heard of. We do a bit of this and that, and then we feel satisfied. Well, it is not only buying food of organic origin. Also, those who eat meat can drive a benefit from that if the world is well conducted. Sustainability, back again to your question, more than 25% of the sample thinks that sustainability is just an added cost. That's an issue. More than 50% thinks that that is a way to improve competitiveness. This is a key point. As you see here, thanks to Intesa Sanpaolo, 800 balance sheets of companies in the jewelry sector, 155 of them are IJC certified, shows that certified companies well, their balance sheets are better. There is no cause and effect link indeed, but that's an indicator. And there is a difference there with micro companies driving the best benefits from certifications. This is not all. Intesa Sanpaolo assessed productivity. They compared added value per worker. As you see, certified companies produce better. So their productivity is higher. Last but not least, profitability. the same principle is applied, measured in terms of EBITDA margin. Micro companies derive more benefits as compared with big companies. Well, to conclude, I would say that companies are paying a lot of attention to these topics. This is more so for the production side as compared with the trading companies. You see, it's concerning to see how many companies still consider sustainability as a cost, and also that the training is not enough. We should work on the whole system in order to improve the skills so that we can achieve standardization, a difficult word to pronounce, and to be more consistent. There is a need to disseminate the attention to these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cristina. So it can be a cost, but it is a cost that leads to significant benefits in terms of margins, dynamics, capability of producing and manufacturing in a better way. Yes, this has been proven by numbers as well. So it is not just something that has been said, not just words. Intesa Sanpaolo has evaluated the balance sheets, the accounts of all these companies, and this has become something tangible that cannot be denied. So far, we have always heard that sustainability equals competitiveness. Well, we can say that this is true. And it's not a coincidence, is it? Great. Thank you very much, Cristina. The idea to invite Alessandro Aresu was born out of your own intuition. Scientific counselor of Limes and writer, he's written Le potenze del capitalismo politico e il dominio del XXI secolo. And in October, the Geopolitics of Artificial Intelligence is the new book they are going to publish. Why did we invite Alessandro Aresu of Limes? Because the target, the objective of our meetings is that of understanding better, to talk together, to put together all the different voices of our industry, to better understand how we perceive trends, to have tools to develop our strategies, to be able to plan. For strategic planning, you need to learn the context we live in, a context which is made of wars that are not only fought with armaments, but also with policies and duties. So this is why, thanks to Cristina, we have involved Alessandro Aresu, who's an expert in all this, asking him to provide us with a detailed context. And also to understand which is the value of gold or the precious raw material in a moment like the one we're experiencing now. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to exchange ideas with the other speakers and to visit these amazing exhibitions with these wonderful booths that are really inspiring. So I have chosen this color also for my tie. And anyway, it's my favorite color. And I'm going to give you a short presentation, which is a series of images following this provocatory question. Is gold winning the war between the United States and China? Well, I would like to reason about the present international context. This is one of the maps that have been put together for Limes, our geopolitical magazine, by our cartographer, Mrs. Laura Canali, to describe the different international issues. And here we can see the main crisis area of the so-called the big war, which is a variation on what Pope Francis a few years ago named the World War in Pieces. It is true. we are experiencing pieces of the World War, and these pieces are the different conflicts we are going through today. And if we were to map all wars and all conflicts on our country, we would have to zoom in on many different areas. For instance, think about the regional conflicts in Africa. Unfortunately, the world is characterized by the presence of several wars. And in our area of the world, it is legitimate to focus our attention on some specific conflicts. On one hand, we got the Russian-American War, which is a war between Ukraine and Russia that started in 2022. But as you all know very well, this conflict has roots in the past. From 2014 onwards, the Donbass area was already the theater of war. Then we have the Middle East with Israel and Palestine. We are witnessing a shift towards a different dimension of existing conflicts that were frozen for a certain point in time, but then became connected to other crises. Think about the Yemen war, the victims it totaled in a 10-year period. This is relevant for the international trade of arms. But when did we realize that a war was ongoing in Yemen? Well, when the logistics changed, sea logistics. So this is something really fundamental, because when military operations carried out by Houthi upset the international trade, the world trade towards Europe, forcing vessels to go down to Cape of Good Hope, whilst all of a sudden this makes something invisible until that moment very visible and tangible. So visible and invisible. I'm also thinking about the war I have focused on in my books, which is the war between the United States and China. There is an ongoing war between the United States and China. I call it the invisible war. In the book I published in 2022, because I focused on how relationships between the United States and China have already changed some value chains for digital and ecological transition. Specifically, the value chain of semiconductors and microelectronics that is fundamental for our digital life, without which we would go back to 8 years ago, and then the value chain of electric mobility, where something amazing happened in the last 10 years, i.e. China converted their manufacturing facilities from other industries to become the #1 manufacturer of batteries for electric vehicles worldwide. And it is also the biggest market for traditional cars and vehicles. So all this leads to some trade conflicts. What does this mean? It means that on one hand, risks are soaring, and on the other hand, actions are undertaken to safeguard oneself versus those risks, because it is no longer possible to trade freely like we used to do in the past. So we have two important factors. The first factor, talking about technological wars, resides in the fact that today there are ongoing wars, but the #1 risk worldwide is Taiwan, a conflict focusing on Taiwan. It is not likely that a war will take place. As you probably know, Taiwan has an international status which is quite problematical due to agreements between the United States and China in the 70s during the Nixon administration. In Taiwan, the government is elected, but China claims that Taiwan is their own territory, and it is the world center of advanced electronic production. And also, we have Foxconn, the #1 assembling company, producing Apple smartphones and assembling electronic devices that are so important for our digital economy. On top of that, the Sea of Taiwan and of China is the area where most of maritime trade goes through. So you can very well understand that if something happens, if there is a conflict in that area, the impact will cost several thousand billions in terms of the world GDP, next to the concrete risk of a possible escalation of the conflict. This fact, so even if it is not likely and probable, nevertheless, this would have such a big impact that you must always take this into due consideration. However, since we're talking about gold here, I would like to focus our attention on risk hedging in this world, which is characterized by so many conflicts and complications. From 2000 to 2021, sanctions imposed by the United States have increased 9-fold. So we are experiencing the century of sanctions. From 21 onwards, data are not available yet, but we know that sanctions have been imposed on Russia, which is the country that has received most sanctions worldwide, surpassing Iran. And several types of technological and commercial sanctions imposed on China were imposed on China, so there is the inclusion of many Chinese enterprises in the blacklist of the United States government. So this process has further progressed, and the power of sanctions, especially the American ones, is limiting trade. So using the reference world currency, the dollar, some countries and some companies that relate to those countries were excluded from the traditional commercial circuits. And this poses a big problem to many, many countries. The dollar supremacy, which is not a problem for the United States, but is a problem for those who are the object of sanctions, that potentially would like to free themselves from sanctions, well, it is an unresolved problem, unlike what we frequently hear. We hear that a de-dollarization is ongoing because of BRICS. People do not want the dollar anymore. It is true there are countries that refuse the dollar, but in trade flows and in world reserves, as you can see from these pictures, the dollar is still predominant. We're still experiencing a supremacy of the dollar in trade flows and in FX reserves. The poor euro, between inverted commas, also plays a role. But compared to the manufacturing power of China, you can see that China is already the superpower in manufacturing worldwide, because the rise of China in the last 40 years is unprecedented and has already determined the supremacy of China in manufacturing. But what about the financial supremacy? The red line here represents the Chinese currency, and there is no financial supremacy of China. So which is the role of gold in all this? Well, the gold has become the real alternative to the dollar in these processes. A growing number of countries, important countries, in demographic terms, in energy terms, talking about the energy flows, and also in commercial and economic terms, are trying to decouple from the system that is centered on the dollar. Because when conflicts increase towards China, the system becomes more aggressive, the sanctions become more and more stringent, and trade is limited by sanctions. So on one hand, some countries, to avoid sanctions now, say, I want to trade energy and electronics in a way that is free of the dollar threat, or maybe I want to create new alternatives for the future. So I'm talking about the BRICS countries, including in an enlarged fashion, not only Russia and Brazil, but also India, which has its own conflicts as far as China is concerned, but it doesn't matter. India wants this kind of freedom. Turkey, which is another important country, and also the monarchies of the Gulf. So there is a growing quest that has been generated by these conflicts for commercial freedom that goes through diversification based on the gold. Gold reserves worldwide have increased in the past. Then, at the time of naive globalization from 1980 to 2000, until the moment when China became part of the World Trade Organization in 2001 and the Twin Tower attacks, followed by the development of the sanctioning system in the United States to strike terrorism at first. So in this period, the reserves have gone down, and then after the recession in 2008, reserves went up again. These are the data of the International Monetary Fund. And all this is reflected on foreign and gold reserves, as well as the internal Chinese distribution. We're not talking about huge numbers, also if compared with the financial availability in China, the so-called Chinese blockade, those countries I mentioned before. But as you can see, there is a significant change in direction. And to conclude, let me go back to the initial slide with this map of the world. And I would like to quote Warren Buffett, the biggest investor worldwide, a legendary person, the oracle. Warren Buffett is more than 90, and he's always been against investing in gold. He loves liquidity. He has hundreds of billions of liquidity because he's sold Apple and Bank of America shares. And he claims, I don't like gold because, and he writes very open letters, he writes, gold is a bet on fear, and I don't like to bet on fear. Well, this can be interpreted in two ways. On one hand, since we're here, we have to say that gold is not just a bet on fear, but it is also a bet on beauty, craftsmanship, and many other factors. The factors that play a role in understanding how these dynamics affect or have an effect on the growth of new markets. The conflict between China and the United States regarding technological trade has already brought to the foreground some countries in Southeast Asia, Vietnam and Malaysia, for instance. They are now becoming those countries in which diversification is possible. So the middle class in Vietnam will become a very important market in the future. Another example is the pivotal country for both conflicts. So Turkey, of course. Turkey plays an important role in logistics and in negotiating as well, because Turkey is able to talk to both parties. And of course, this is also something that has some economic relevance. To conclude, what Warren Buffett claims regarding gold is also true. Gold is a bet on fear, so there is some truth in this. It is the structure of these world conflicts that makes a possible solution difficult. Our mindset makes us think about a definitive negotiation in which all these actors representing different interests get together and reconstruct the world a little bit like after the Second World War. But in the structure of these conflicts, this is extremely difficult. This is why the bet on fear, with its ups and downs, with the improvement of some of these situations, will still be a good bet. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alessandro.
Straordinario.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Congratulations. You opened up a new world. Maybe Italians are more reactive than others to respond to such uncertainties. You know, the Italian entrepreneurs are stubborn. They are not scared by the complexity, by red tape, which is very heavy on them. They go on and fight. Thank you very much for this description. Stefano Rocca, thank you very much for being here. He's CEO of the Gismondi Group, which needs no presentation. The Gismondi Group, one of its members is a Vendorafa for a few months. Stefano Rocca has been working in the luxury world for many years. Worked 20 years for Bulgari and then for Sotheby's as an art expert. And for 10 years, you have been working in the Gismondi Group. Well, in this complex geopolitical situation, what is the question that the market is asking? The Gismondi Group represents top quality, creativity, crafts, reconciling beauty with exceptional craftsmanship, high jewelry, retail. You do have a retail network. What is the state of the art of trading and companies and crafts? What are the future scenarios? Thank you very much for inviting me. I feel a bit embarrassed after the words of the previous colleague. Sorry, but comments are outside the microphone. The Limes expert sent a picture of our necklace to his mother. So maybe his mother is waiting for that gift. I mean, my ego was incredibly inflated by that picture. To answer your question, many years ago, we had realized that the market was moving from more democratic luxury with a prestigious product offered to those consumers who wanted to have a luxury good without paying very high prices. That was a process which became increasingly evident over the years, and we were going back to the idea of exclusive pieces, only for the few. Then we had the pandemic, so that process came to a halt. After that, in 2022, there was the post-COVID bubble with revenge shopping, spending at all costs since we were free to go around and buy. Well, the market, confronted with what Dr. Aresu presented, the market is shy to spend. So we do, as we did before the COVID, not calculating what is the price of an item, because it is in a way considered unethical to have an expensive good at a time of crisis, wars, be them overt or hidden. We see disasters every day in Ukraine, in Gaza, and that is related with this ethics of doing shopping. What comes out there? It's a new element, and we have to get ready in terms of production and sales. There is a demand for authenticity. I have a house in the south of Italy, and I spend half a day with my neighbor to speak about the olive oil that we produce. This is authenticity. We look for bread made at home. We use old recipes. This desire for authenticity coincides with three key points, which is uniqueness, high quality, and crafts. Uniqueness, because we are looking for something which should be ours, something made for me only. 2, high quality. Value for money is getting back. We see that in shops. People are asking. You said that I used to work at Bulgaria because I didn't want customers asking what was the gold content of this item, because I cannot understand why the price is so high. And I told them, well, the production, the entrepreneur risks, I produced an item because I believe in it. There is something more behind the price. Now things want to perceive the quality, the high quality which is behind what they buy. As a consequence, the only element which certifies a top quality is the craftsmanship. That should be seen, should be flattered, exhibited, narrated, and used as a justification. I use craftsmanship to explain the cost, or the price, rather. We have a great strength in terms of production, i.e. the ability of our artisans. Some were angry because they told me we are proud to produce in Italy with the Italian crafts. And some people were in a rage because they said, you exclude the Chinese working in Italy. No, Italian craftsmen, the artisans, they know perfectly well the difference between something which is well made and something which is not well made. Where is the limit? Well, the limit is where the thing apparently appears to be perfect, but at the magnifying glass, we see all the imperfections. So it's an imperfect perfect. A few years ago, I was chatting with a gentleman in a watch company in Switzerland. I was talking to a master who was in charge of producing the mechanisms of the watch. That is, the decorations inside. He put the ribbed decoration, and it was described as a Pascal. This person's name was Pascal. They said he is very good. They were describing this gentleman in French, and then he said, I'm not Pascal, I am Pasquale. I come from Naples. I made 4 elements and the fifth is different because I'm getting bored. So this is the strength of our industry clusters. This is connected to the fact that we get bored. So we can produce 5 top-of-the-range rings which look like the same, but then with a lens, you see that they are different. So what is re-emerging, and this is the point of strength of those people who have been doing that for years, what we used to call the special order. The big brands, the big labels did that for a long time. I was a member of that team who lost the battle on the special orders issue. We decided no longer to do them. We were not supposed to accept special orders because the production cost was too high in relation to the markups. Now, I work in a company which has a completely different approach. The customer can come to the shop, watch what's in the shop window, and they say, well, I'd like that, but with an additional diamond, with a different shape, so that it's tailor-made. And they say, well, I saw your items. They are very nice. I want to have a drawing. And then I go to a friend of mine and I asked for a different item to be produced especially for me. That is the secret for success. Our company works well. We tackled and overcame the COVID. We had a plus with a 2 digits during the COVID time because we had a customer on WhatsApp complaining, I'm fed up with bad things. Why don't you propose me a wonderful necklace or a bracelet? And we did that. So the future is investing on our specificities, on our creativity, in production and for new inventions, using cross techniques, being unique and having top quality. So we should be able to interpret this moment in time where demand is very demanding, and looking for uniqueness and exclusivity. That for big companies as the Gismondi Group. What about cross-company, the small ones? Indeed, we do have Hyperen Lab in our group, subcontractors for big brands. I think that 40% of their sales is done based on subcontracting. The rest is for us. As a group, we thought to do some integration upstream in order to have a reliable source. The fact there are many mergers going on, acquiring all the small workshops in Valencia, for example, including them in large groups, that increases the labor cost and the cost of production. You have a production company, that means that the price remains the same because we have the craft indeed. So you are asked what to do. I mean, I indeed think that working together can improve the situation. Small companies, what are they supposed to do? They have to look for the technical skills which have been acquired over the centuries. reducing the price of gold or reducing the carriage. Not many of them are doing that.
Laboratori.
Those who work in the workshops these days have sort of forgotten about that. It happened to us to go and ask for the grandfather to come and explain that, which means, look, I'll show you how you can process the drawing, how you can draw gold by hand. I mean, rediscovering these techniques, those ancient techniques, and then the associations. I mean, I'm not saying that we are just sitting down waiting. Some are already doing that. But there is another important point, which is we have to work hard to disseminate the culture of preserving know-how. If you acquire the small companies and increase your production capacity and increase your margins because you lower your processing times, well, this means simultaneously forgetting and losing all those operations that are time-consuming, that have a cost, which, however, are related to the creativity of the single craftsman. If there are 5 craftsmen in that workshop, there is one of them who has invented something so that you have a tanzanite of 70 carats that can stand without needing the support. So reinvesting in techniques and ourselves in all what has been lost in time. So the heritage that needs to be safeguarded, the skills, all this is important to guarantee continuity in the turnover and in the problems that we will have in the coming years when it will be difficult to find new resources.
Lo è, però
And to teach them skills that they cannot have at the beginning. Yes, in Italy there are 3 different clusters. Each one has got its own identity and its own strengths. These 3 clusters, if I wanted to be visionary, should actually try to work together. That is, I do what I can do and you help me sell it, and vice versa. This should be mutual help. It's a little bit difficult for Italians to be able to do that. We were able to give to the French so many companies that the few Italians that are still surviving, I mean, we should preserve them because they're a species that will become extinct. WWF should take care of them. Anyway, let me just hint to the commercial side. Yes, we've seen that the retail is a crucial element. Yes, this is a very important topic. For sure, in a context like the one that I have described at the beginning, service is paramount, and the level of service that you can provide plays a very important role. In the 80s, somebody spoke of retailtainment, viewing the shop as a stage. So the person coming to the shop must have an experience. We've heard this millions of times. So the shop must become the stage, a stage where people meet. But the sales forces must be able to understand the customer's needs. They need to know the customers. And they need to take the customer there where the customers wants to go. And customers do not want to go to shops these days because going in a shop means being questioned. When I open the door of a shop, and usually jewelry shops have got a locked door, well, the customer thinks they want to take advantage of me. As soon as I say something, they'll try to sell me something. No, you must have a customer who's happy to come in because the time has come to be with good friends. The time has come to play, dressing up dolls. Let's dress up dolls. I mean, all girls, all women used to play with dresses and shoes that they used to put on and take off from their dolls. And I feel that customers love to do that. I mean, wear this and think about that dress. Wear this and think about that handbag. So this is the kind of climate, of atmosphere that we must create in our shops. We must follow the customers. We must provide them with the service they expect. We must be able to fly, take a flight to go and see our customers, because it is only in this way that we can personalize our relationship. If the customers asks, where are you going? To the theater. Where shall I go to the theater tonight? I must be able to answer this question, even if I sell jewelry. And I have salespeople all over the world, friends of mine, who say, look, I managed to have him buy a Ferrari car. They sell jewelry, but they accompanied the customer to the Ferrari shop. So being able of developing this kind of atmosphere of relationship, being able to tell stories, this is even more important today, because we want to leave worries behind. We want to relax. And very often, I relax at home and not in a shop. So we need a lot of flexibility. And we must also get out of our shops. We've seen that the shop assistant plays a fundamental role, and in some segments, customers follow shop assistants and change the brand if these shop assistants change the shop where they work. It is true. When you were talking about this, I thought about sustainability. Like Cristina told us, sustainability is related to, and this is just an enrichment. So sustainability is related to our footprint. Not only our footprint on the planet, but on our area, in the community where we work. So apart from our ecological environmental footprint, we also have a footprint in terms of the people working in my area, in my community. This is strictly related to corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility was born as a university theory at the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, claiming that entrepreneurs who become rich have the moral duty to give back to the community part of this wealth, providing training, improving working conditions, taking care of the environment, and so on and so forth. Some years ago, one of my students at the University La Sapienza in Rome, I told her to carry out a research on the significance of social corporate responsibility in performance, exactly what we are seeing here today. So she actually made a research work proving in a sample of potential customers interviewed all over the world. It was a very serious research. And we even presented it to Pomelato for Dodo. They didn't trust us in Italy. Well, this proved that the customers interviewed claimed, 90% of them claimed that they would spend 10% more for the brand and even change the brand if the company was able to prove their commitment in corporate social responsibility. That is, in the ecological and their ecological footprint and on their effect on the life quality of the workers, fair salaries, and so on and so forth. I'm puzzled when I hear about people perceiving that the costs are too high for this. Being a manager, I would say it is not a cost, it's an investment. Because if I invest in sustainability and I communicate my commitment to sustainability, well, I believe that results are tangible, and numbers have proven that. I must find that research because it was a really nice one. I should give a call to that student. Yes, that would be very, very interesting. One more question. We have spoken of people, craftsmanship. What about technology? Well, the number of things we need to certify to our buyers is increasing. A pamphlet is no longer sufficient. A pamphlet, a brochure telling us about how that given item was created. You also need a diamond certificate, a certificate about the extraction of gold. And technology can certainly help us a lot in this respect, because we can put some order in all this and we can provide appropriate certificates. So not just a certificate about the carats and the features of the diamond, but also all the other certificates. And we need technology here because, you know, if you have goods for 5 million, it is very hard to know everything about each single item. And when we look for the certificates of our diamonds, sometimes we have some difficulties in finding them. Where is it? In which shelf? Are you sure we had it? Should we reprint it? Technology can provide us with a big help. AI is another important aspect, but maybe we should leave this topic for another meeting. For sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the conclusion of our meeting. Thank you very much to all our speakers. Thank you very much to our audience. And on behalf of Fede Preziosi, please do not forget our meeting on Sunday at 1:15 p.m. Enjoy the fair.